Part 2 speaking questions for January 2024. I'm going to go over all of the current questions that are in the test as of January. This is the new questions that have come in January, and also questions from September 2023, which I believe are still in the test. And what I'm going to do is organize these under the 5 themes of people, places, things, activities, and experiences. Putting these all together for a few reasons. I've got another video on this, which I'll put in the link in the description below. But just quickly, what are the benefits of organizing our topics under the 5 themes? Well, first of all, there are fewer themes than topics, so it's easier to prepare. We can realize that many topics are similar. You're going to see this in a minute. We can increase our ideas, and it also enables us to build up vocabulary. I'm going to be illustrating this for you. Some of my students have actually built up like 10 stories that covers all the topics in the test, and this is another benefit of organizing your topics thematically. It allows you to see the topics that are similar and how a similar story could be used to cover multiple topics. That's a smart way to prepare. The bad way to prepare is just to prepare for like 40 different questions. That's not an effective way at all. So we want to realize that our topics are interrelated, that if we're talking about a person, we might talk about a place at the same time. For instance, where we meet that person, or the place that we first met the person. We might talk about activities that we do with the person, things that we got from the person or things that we gave to the person. And then we often have experiences that involve other people. So all of these topics are interrelated. If you want to see more on this, see the video in the description. I don't want to go too deep into this in this particular video. What I really want to do is get onto the questions and the themes and talk about those and how you can use those to prepare for your test. Here's all our topics about people. Let me go through them real quick, and then I'll talk about how can you prepare for these. Describe a person you know who likes to talk a lot. Describe a person who welcomes you to their home. Describe a successful person who you once studied or worked with. Describe a successful sports person you admire. Describe someone you don't know but would like to know more about. Describe a foreigner who speaks your language well. So the first thing that I would encourage you to do is try and think of some of the topics that could be answered with the same person. So if we look at the first two, a person you know who likes to talk a lot, a person who welcomes you to their home. This could well be the same person, right? So you could build an answer for the topic that just involves the same person and the same sort of story and answer. Note the first word's always describe. So you can have lots of adjectives to describe this person. Just as a quick example, we can have some adjectives to describe a person's appearance, personality, and maybe your relationship to them, and even things such as their lifestyle. I also like building up adjectives for opposites. Like you see down the bottom, night owl, the opposite of that is early bird. And words like extrovert, we have introvert, and optimistic person, we have pessimistic person. So it's a really good idea to build up these opposite adjectives, and then you should be able to apply some of those to whoever you decide to cover. Let's say it's another type of person, then we might have some of the opposite adjectives to what you just saw. So if you build up these pairs of opposites, then when you think of the person, it can be quite easy to have right at hand a whole lot of high-level vocabulary, including idiomatic expressions such as early bird, night owl. These help increase your score. So think of the person who it could be for these first two. Someone who likes to talk a lot, that's probably going to be an extrovert. And they like to welcome you to their home. Do they invite you for coffee in the morning? Are they an early bird? Or do they invite you in the evening to have a couple of beers or whiskies? Are they a night owl? Do they like to have parties? Maybe it's an extroverted person who is a night owl, fun-loving person, loves to party. Do you like to party? Me, not so much. I used to. I guess I'm getting old. It's important to think about the tense. This third one, describe a successful person who you once studied or worked with. This suggests that you're not, well, you could be. I suppose it's possible you're still studying. It suggests in the past. It's better to pick somebody in the past that you studied with or worked with. This could be the same person that likes to talk a lot and invites you to their home. Maybe you're friends since high school and you still hang out together. Next one, describe a successful sports person you admire. Now, this probably isn't still your same person, but it's possible. Maybe they're good at golf. Or if you want, you could still just pick this person and just add on that they're good at playing golf or some kind of sports. Note the word successful. And when we look at these topics, it's this sentence that matters, by the way. I haven't really mentioned this, but let's look at a complete topic. The complete topic looks something like this. We get the first sentence, describe a person who you know. Describe a person you know who likes to talk a lot. And then first word's always describe. And then you get this, you should say, and then you get some sub-questions. It's not a requirement to answer all these sub-questions, but what is a requirement is to respond to each word in that first sentence. So it's not just a person you know, it's someone who likes to talk a lot. So already some of the students I've been giving mock tests to, they don't answer this question well. They tell me a person they like to talk to, but they don't really cover why this person talks a lot or the fact that this person talks a lot. So it's not a person you like to talk to, it's a person you know who likes to talk a lot. So that's a talkative person. It's probably going to be an extrovert. So make sure you respond to that first sentence and the rest of the part. The rest of the sort of sub-questions don't matter. And notice how the meat in the sandwich is often down here. Explain why this person is so talkative. This is a key element of the question. And what often happens is people speak about this for 2 minutes and never really get on to the talkative part, which is really the key part, as I said, the meat in the sandwich, the main part that you should really be focusing on. So don't focus too much on these sub-questions. It's that first sentence that matters. This next question would go well with a sports person, I think. Describe someone you don't know but would like to know more about. Now, don't know here, like we can know someone, and that normally means like intimately, or we've met them, we've had a conversation with them. That's knowing somebody. And knowing about or knowing of someone is maybe someone we haven't met, like a movie star, or if it's a sports person, let's say Tiger Woods. I know of Tiger Woods. I know he exists. I know he's a famous golfer, but I've never met him, so I wouldn't say I know him, because I know him suggests that, hey, Tiger, what's going on? What are you up to this weekend? Do you want to hang out? Right? If I know him, it suggests that I've actually met him, and likely he would know me, but why would he know me, right? So I think this, it depends what sport you're interested in, but I'm not into golf, but just let's say Tiger Woods, and then I want to know more about him. Yeah, he has an interesting background, I think, and I do know a little bit about him. I know that he practices really hard on his golf, especially his driving. He worked really hard on his driving, and he can get about 10 meters extra distance than his rivals when he tees off on the golf course. The last one, describe a foreigner who speaks your language well. It could be a sports person, but then in that case, they have to speak the same language as you. So if they're Chinese, you're going to have to come up with, you could come up with a Chinese sports person, or if you're a Vietnamese sport person, or I can't go through all the countries. If you're Indian sports person, and so on. So if you pick a successful sports person from your country, then this person's the same. You want to know more about them, and they're not a foreigner. That'll be hard for that one. So you'd have to pick a sports person that does actually speak your language well. But I mean, sometimes this occurs, right? Sometimes there are famous people, and they do speak second languages, believe it or not. So you might be able to do these three the same, or it could be that these last two to go together. There's this foreigner that speaks your language really well, and you'd like to know more about them and find out what makes them tick, and why is it that they can speak your language well, and why is it that they're interested in your language and your culture and your country. It's interesting to know, right? So those are the people questions. So I think you should be able to answer all of those with probably 3 people at the most, maybe 2 people. And I encourage you to do that, because this way you could work on kind of a model answer. You could rehearse it, you could practice, you could have lots of high-level vocabulary that comes out, and then it's more than likely to go well when you do your real test. Right? Part 2 is an area you can really prepare for and do well, and maybe lift your score. You don't get a score just for part 2, but if you make a positive impression, it's going to influence your score, and it's going to influence the examiner's perception of your level of English. Then we go on to the places, and there really aren't too many places this time around. And by the way, all that stuff you did preparing the people, you might be able to put the people in some of your stories to answer places questions. So there's only 3 that I've found that are directly about places. You should be able to cover these with 1 or maybe 2 places in your country. Now, the tricky one is a place in your country that you're interested in. So if you pick a national park in your country, a famous national park in your country, then you could use it to answer all of these 3. A place where you often go to relax, the national park; a park or garden in your city, the national park. This is presuming that you live in maybe a big city or a city with a national park. If not, it's possible you might need 2 places. You might need a garden, and you might need a place in your country that you're interested in. That you're interested in sort of suggests that you may not have been there as well, right? So maybe 2 is a good idea. But then you should be able to pick this park or garden as a place to relax. So again, we should only need 1 or 2 places. It depends on your luck a little bit, I guess. You can sort of pretend a little bit too, like maybe you have been to this national park, and then you just sort of pretend that you haven't been there and that you're interested in going there. And then we want to have some vocabulary for places. Let's just have a few ideas. Well, first of all, some ideas. If we're talking about places, we might be able to talk about things such as where it's located and any buildings that are there. And maybe there's some fauna, which are animals; flora, which are plants. Flora and fauna. These are useful words to increase your score. And so here's just a few ideas. I mean, this could be a relaxing place. It's possible. Maybe maybe you have a relative with a house on the coast. And so you could talk about the location on the coast and the grassy paddocks and these sorts of things. And then flora, what sort of plants there are, maybe for the park, what sort of flora in your park. Use the word flora. That's like band 8 language. I don't mean you use that word and you get band 8, but it helps push your score up, right? And the fauna, I mean, even just some rats, maybe, but often there's like squirrels up in the trees and these sort of things. Some of the other things I like adjectives for places, I really like tranquil atmosphere, and that's going to be useful if it's a park or a quiet place. I like hustle and bustle if it's the opposite. And sometimes you can use opposite words, right? You might think you can't use hustle and bustle to describe a park, but you might talk about escaping from the hustle and bustle and going to the park because of its quiet, tranquil atmosphere. Things can be a bit more tricky to categorize sometimes, and sometimes it's difficult to come up with just two different things that can be recycled amongst all the questions. But let's have a look at some of these, and some of them you're going to probably need unique answers or stories for, but some of them maybe not. Some of them you might have, if you've been preparing for IELTS for a while, you might have already prepared for some of these. So let's go through them. Describe a movie that you felt strongly about. So there's been a lot of questions about movies, and if you've prepared for this topic before, just make sure you cover felt strongly about. So if you felt strongly about a movie, that means it evoked some kind of emotion from you. So for instance, there's a movie recently called the Whale, and it's about a guy who is huge. He's enormous like a whale, and he's literally eating himself to death. What happened is his gay lover died, and he's just devastated, and he basically just wants to die. So he orders multiple pizzas and buckets of chicken, and he's got an eating disorder, right? So that's quite an emotional movie. I recommend it. It's worth watching it. I feel strongly about that movie, and I've discussed it a lot with other people, and it's not just about weight gain and loss. It's just the way people deal with things that happen in their lives. I think it's an interesting movie. Describe a uniform you have worn. Now that might link back to this here. Describe a successful person who you once studied or worked with. You might be talking about your school uniform, and you could mention this person in your answer. Describe a science subject that you are interested in. Gosh. So the tense is now, so it's not about what you were interested in when you were a child. It's what science subject are you interested in now? This could be a difficult one. Like, not everybody's into science. But if you like computers, then computer science. Science can take on multiple shapes though, like psychology is a branch of science too. So if you're not interested in sort of technology and those things, maybe you're interested in psychology. Hey, and in that case, it could link to the movie possibly, right? And then these next two, you can definitely combine these if you're careful. A photo that makes you feel happy, and describe a painting. Now the painting could just be your photo, because a lot of people struggle with this painting one. They're like, oh, I can't think of a painting. Or maybe the wrong one enters their head, like Mona Lisa. Quite hard to describe that painting for 2 minutes. So what you could do is just pick your photo as your painting and just pretend that there's this painting on your wall, but it's actually a photo, right? Now, when you pick something like a photo or a painting, try and have one that's got a lot in it, like people, places, things. Even this picture you can see on the screen. There's a couple of people there, so I could be describing them. I reckon the chappie in the pink, I don't know how to call that, sorry, turban. I guess that's a pink turban. I'm going to guess he's a bit of an extrovert because I've never seen like that colour turban before, and maybe it has some sort of significance. But I think he looks like a happy sort of extroverted sort of guy. We've got the lady. She looks like she could be wearing some kind of uniform, so that could come back to our uniform question. But there's also a background, right? There's some fauna, there's some trees and plants in the background there. So there's actually quite a lot we could describe. We could also describe what was happening when the photo got taken. Maybe it was some sort of a party or celebration or that sort of thing. All right, and then if it's the painting, I guess it could sort of be the same thing, right? Last one, describe a rule that is important in your school or work. Again, present tense, so this doesn't mean you can go, if you've graduated from high school, you can't go back to high school now and talk about how, we had this important rule, you had to wear a uniform. This is what you're doing now, so if you're studying, then you can talk about your school. If you're working, you can talk about a rule at your work, being on time, something. I guess if you're doing both, you can choose. You're lucky. But yeah, pick something carefully. Probably being on time's not a bad one, and then you can use some of that language about early bird, night owl. I'm a bit of an early bird. I'm a bit of a night owl, so it's really tough for me to turn up on time. So this rule, it's a really big challenge for me. I'm not an early bird, so I have to set an alarm to get up. So yeah, that one's pretty hard actually, that last one. Like most people find it difficult talking about rules. And this is another reason why you want to look at these questions before the test. You don't want to go into the test and suddenly you look at your topic and you're like, not good. You want to be looking at these topics before, thinking about them, identifying any that are difficult, and then making a really solid plan for that topic in case you get it in your real test. And basically, if you're sort of wondering how do you prepare for these topics, try and see the similarities and then think the highest level is think about what you're going to say. You normally need 3 or 4 main ideas to fill 2 minutes. Then you can start thinking about some vocabulary that you can use for your answer. Then if you really want to practice, do a model answer, but you may not have time to do a model answer for every topic. So at least think about what you're going to say and what sort of vocabulary you could use to spice it up a bit. Okay, on to activities. Activities. What do I want to say about activities? Well, as I've sort of just been saying, like we want to prepare, let's see which of these topics could be answered in a similar way. So these first two are past tense, right? Outdoor activity you enjoyed doing when you were a child, and an activity you remember enjoying in your primary school. That's a while ago. So yeah, like for me, I might pick something like swimming. That would be a good one, I think. I could cover both of these. It's an outdoor activity. I do remember enjoying swimming. And then you could, then in terms of vocabulary, I mean, do you know any vocabulary to do with swimming? Do you know freestyle or breaststroke? Just try and brainstorm a bit about vocabulary that you already know. And you could use some liking language. I was really keen on swimming. I'm a big fan of swimming, right? So we can use some of our liking language. An important skill you learned when you were a child. Oh, I know, swimming. Something you do to help you study or work. Well, if it's study, I need to go swimming. I need to chill out every so often, and swimming really clears my mind. And when I go back to study or work, I find I'm so much more effective. So the thing you do essentially is take breaks, relax. That's something you can do to help yourself work or study, to relax so that you're more effective, right? A job you would not like to do. Oh, swimming instructor. I'd really hate to do that. I think it would be incredibly difficult trying to teach children how to swim, especially when they're scared. I think I'd just want to grab them and say, pull yourself together, or something. So I might not have the patience for it. Describe a time someone made a lot of noise. Well, that could be swimming. Kids, when they're swimming, make a lot of noise. And they could be screaming, I don't want to, I don't want to. Or it could be something else. You might even link this one to the next one, a party you enjoyed. A party you enjoyed that's in the past and someone made a lot of noise. Maybe somebody sang at the party or something like that. An activity that made you feel tired, it could be the party or it could be swimming, and I might go from swimming to snorkeling, and how I was snorkeling and how I was tired, and so I stopped swimming breaststroke because that's quite tiring, and I changed to freestyle. So that could be useful there. When did I go swimming? Maybe I'm an early bird. Maybe I got up at the crack of dawn and went snorkeling. Maybe I went with someone. Maybe I went with a friend who's an introvert, because when I go snorkeling, I don't really want to talk a lot. I want to just focus on the snorkeling. So they link together, right? All these different themes. And then we get on to experiences, and these ones can be quite varied. There's a lot of them usually, and even though they're quite varied, we can draw on our other stories, right? Because experiences normally involve people, places, things, activities, right? So we can think about what we've already prepared, and that will help inform us here about how we can prepare some of these topics. So the first one, describe an occasion when someone complained in a restaurant or store. We've really got to make sure we cover the complaining part, and I do that fairly early. You don't want to tell this big long story and then not get onto the complaining part. So that keyword needs to be addressed early. But note, we've got someone, so we've got a person. If it's someone we know, maybe they're an extrovert, maybe they're a night owl, we can use some of our people language. We've got a restaurant, we've got a place. Maybe there was a lot of hustle and bustle. Maybe that caused problems. Maybe that was the source of the, to do with the complaint, maybe slow service or something like that. This next one could be quite tricky. Describe a time when you picked up an item that someone else lost. So again, we've got our person. They probably lost it in a place, so we've got our place. And then an item, a thing. What were the things we were talking about earlier? I suppose we could talk about the photo, but we don't really have a lot of useful things that we were talking about. A useful one might be a smartphone or keys or something like that. I mean, try and think of things that have really happened to you and note the tense. Always important to note the tense, right? This one's, you're going to need past tense. Describe a time you brought something from a street market. Probably the easiest thing is going to be food, maybe, but be careful with food. Don't start speaking a whole lot in your language. And if you're going to use a word like from your language, like let's say you're Vietnamese, the noodles that you eat are, I believe, are called pho. Like Western people normally mispronounce this word. I probably did, but anyway, noodles, right? So if you say pho, then say pho, which is a kind of Vietnamese noodle dish. So we call this like glossing, or you can think of it like translating. If you have to use a word in your language, translate it for the examiner. And actually, that's a really good skill to show that you have the ability to do this. And I'm always impressed when people do that. But yeah, just be careful with food. It could be this thing that someone lost. I mean, I don't mean you brought it and someone lost it. I mean, if you're going to prepare to talk about a cell phone for this item here, a smartphone, then maybe you brought a smartphone from a market, if you can't think of anything else. But try and keep things real if you can. Describe a time you were very busy. You could go back to the school and the swimming, and I was busy because I was swimming a lot and I also had to study. Or maybe pick something more recent in your work or study. Maybe you're having to prepare the test. You could talk about this. A time you had to finish something quickly. So again, this could be quite a nasty topic. Imagine you go into the test room and you get your paper and it says this and you've got 1 minute to think. It might be difficult to come up with something to talk about here, let alone what you're going to say about it and the vocabulary. So again, these are the sort of questions you want to be seeing before your test, not in the test. It's kind of too late. You're in an awkward situation then. But what could it be? It could be a meal. Sometimes you've got to finish eating really quickly because you've got to go and do something else. It could be your work. It could be your study. There might be sort of a reason why you have to finish something quickly as well. I think this one's going to depend on you personally. I don't have any sort of magic answer for this because I think that it's going to be different for most people. A trip you were looking forward to that was delayed. So this is in the past. You've been on the trip, but it was delayed. I suppose it's possible that it was a trip you were supposed to go on in the past and it's been delayed and you're going to go on it in the future. That's possible. It's probably easier, though, to talk about a trip you've already done. It's hard, like, let's just say you're going to go to New York. It's hard to talk about New York if you've never been there, right? It's much easier if you've actually been there. So this is going to be a place sort of question. Make sure you're familiar with the place. You can also bring in some people language because there's a good chance that there were other people on the trip, or maybe you did it alone. It's possible. This question could be linked to the previous one, right? The thing that you might have been waiting for, the nice thing might have been this trip. So that could be a good one. It could be to do with the recent virus maybe as well too. A lot of people had to put plans on hold because of that. Gosh, this one too. These experiences questions, probably the hardest. Describe a period of time that changed your life. Wow. It's probably easier for me as an older person. As a younger person, if you're 18, you haven't had a lot of periods of time. You've got when you were a baby, which you probably don't remember. Primary school, you probably remember that, and maybe that could be it. And then you're possibly in high school now, so you can't really talk about that. So you'd have to really talk about your primary school, or, oh, I know, you could go back to this trip and maybe a holiday. Maybe a holiday changed your life. Maybe you went overseas and you had some really amazing experiences. It made you appreciate other cultures more. It's going to be an interesting one because you're going to be talking about a period of time in the past and how it affects your life now. This one is going to be great to use the present perfect tense. Like, I have learned a lot from this experience. So present perfect tense is like has or have, and then the past participle of the verb, and it's for activities or things that happened in the past that have some kind of present influence. So this topic is ripe for present perfect. So that's another thing you can do. You can look at these questions. You can think about tenses and what sort of tense you might use to answer these. And present perfect tenses, it's kind of a wonderful opportunity to show talent to the examiner, even though you don't directly get rewarded for tenses. Like a lot of people think if I use lots of different tenses, I'm going to get a higher score for grammar. But it's not really the case, because the grammar score is mostly from the not making mistakes. So don't make mistakes with tenses. But really the sort of band 7 and above is using a variety of sentences, especially the complex sentences where you have a dependent and independent clause. If I ever have the chance, I will go on holiday there again. Right? This is really the key way to increase your grammar score, but still the examiner might notice the skillful use of different tenses, and it could have a little bit of an impact, but the main impact is going to come from the complex sentences. So make sure you work on those if you're trying to boost your grammar score. Here's a bit of a look at a complex sentence. Like I said, it has the dependent and independent clause. If you would like further explanation, that's the dependent clause. It's an unfinished idea. Let me know. Let me know can stand on its own. It's a independent clause. And we can reverse them too. Let me know if you would like further explanation. And it's also a way to increase your score in the writing test. Let me just kind of finish with a quick overall of what you should be doing to prepare for part 2 of your test. First of all, you want to be preparing for the different topics, and especially preparing for them under the 5 themes. Learn how to plan in 1 minute. Remember, when you go to your test, you get only 1 minute to plan. You need to make sure you can plan effectively in 1 minute. Learn how to structure your answer. So I teach people you normally need 3 or 4 main ideas. Each one becomes a paragraph in your answer. Prepare some vocabulary, especially adjectives and idiomatic expressions. And then the last one, just the different time aspects. Make sure you can talk about past, present, and future. I'll put a PDF below in the comment section for this video, and so you can download that if you would like. It's got all the current questions that are in the test for 2024, for the start of 2024, which is when I'm making this video. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the new questions might be later in the year, but I know what is currently in the test. You might like to go to my website, where I have speaking courses, books, videos, and also I can conduct a mock test with you if you would like to find out your score and ways to increase it. I would appreciate you subscribing to my channel, and this way you will get updates. Please like the video if you found some sort of value in it. It's a pretty easy thing to do. I would greatly appreciate if you can do that. I'll put a few other useful links in the comment section below. Best of luck with preparing for your test in 2024. Hope you're going to be successful. Hope you get the score you need so you can move on with your life and do whatever it is you really want to do, whether that's going to be studying abroad or working abroad, or maybe just getting the dream job that you want back in your own country. IELTS is the first step. I hope you're going to be successful.